and you have heard or seen or thought of this in some way, but I'm going to bring it to you from a slightly different angle. And I'm going to refer to this as the hidden cost of waiting. And I believe, and if you were at our live event in Raleigh a few weeks ago, you heard me talk about this. I believe that buyers right now who are saying they're going to wait on rates to come down are missing one of the biggest wealth building opportunities of their lives. I don't think that's an exaggerant statement, but we're going to talk about how to prove that to them. I'm going to use this $500,000 number for ease of example. We're going to go with assuming this is a $600,000 house with a $500,000 loan. I just want to keep it super simple. And for discussion purposes, we're going to use this 7%. So this would be the principal and interest payment on a $500,000 loan at 7%. This would be the principal and interest payment on a $500,000 loan at 6%. Now, I know if you're watching this live or close to when I record it, rates aren't at 7 right now, but just hang with me on the general idea here. We're comparing a 1 full percent rate difference. Let me give this next slide and break it down for you. So here's the money that buyer thinks they're saving. This is our $600,000 house that we're putting that we're borrowing $500,000. So the difference is $330 a month. So I'm looking at, in round numbers, the difference between this 7% and this 6%, $330 a month, roughly $4,000 a year. That's green here in my graph because that's what the buyer thinks they're saving by waiting. Said a different way, if they're going to hang out until rates end up at 6, the reason they're waiting is to save $4,000. But let's talk about what happens while they wait. And I would lay this out for you in equity growth that they're leaving on the table. I have 3 what I think are very conservative examples. So this is the $600,000 house at 2% home price appreciation. That 2% number is where the vast majority of targets are nationally for next year. Now, that's taking into account the net outbound migration markets that are probably going to see prices come down. That's taking into account the net inbound markets where you are almost certainly going to see prices continue to go up. So I'm only using 2 because it's easy to validate with some national data. I don't think it's a stretch at all that you could use 4% growth or 6% growth. I think some of these markets that we talked about a little bit earlier, these like top 10 hottest markets, or these some of these markets from the pods research here, I don't think it's out of bounds that some of those markets could see 8 to 10% median home price appreciation in 2025. But part of the way we're going to describe this to buyers is to make it believable without being exaggerant. So I got 2, 4, and 6 here. So your $600,000 house is now worth 612 or 624 or 636 a year from now. I'm not even taking into account the fact that if they bought it a year from now at 624 and they paid 6% interest on it, that their monthly payment is actually higher than what we have here, because now they're buying a $624,000 house at a 6% rate. I don't want to get too tangled up in it because I think it over explains the point that I'm attempting to make. So let's just split the difference here and call it 4%. In this case, the $600,000 house, they missed out on $24,000 worth of equity growth. But what you also know right now is that there's a really big negotiating opportunity in most of your markets. Now, I know in certain little pockets, or if it's like a house that's a 10 out of 10, some of you are still seeing multiple offers right now. Cool. Congratulations. Some of you are still seeing 100% list price to sale price or more on those little specific properties. But more broadly speaking, I think if you were to just be conservative here and say, well, we could probably negotiate a 3% discount on that property right now because buyer demand is comparatively low and sellers are a little bit nervous about things, then maybe we get this $600,000 house for 3% off. So that'd be $582. That'd be an $18,000 discount. In some combination of price reductions or seller prepays or contributions to closing cost or repairs prior to or after closing, work that any way that you want to. But I think this is very, very conservative as well. So in this case, we got 24,000 of equity growth. We got 18,000 in discounts. My math says that's $42,000, offset by the $4,000 that they're going to save. So in this case, round numbers, $38,000 of wealth building that buyer is leaving on the table while they wait. Pause. All of this is rational math, and manipulate it any way that you want to make it match your buyer and their needs. You could see how even if I, watered this down to 2% growth and I watered this down to 2% discount, we're still talking about tens of thousands of dollars of difference. But all of that is still rational. And what you all know from like sales training 101 is that rational stuff's going to make them think, but then it's the emotional piece that's ultimately going to get them into action. So there's a fear of missing out element to this discussion. They're missing out on wealth building. However, the biggest emotional piece that we're doing is, oh, by the way, not only are you leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table, but you still have to blank. And blank is whatever they're leaving, whatever they desire to leave to move into this new home. So in this case, if I really want to like drive the wedge a little harder here, you're going to leave $38,000 of wealth building opportunity on the table over the next 12 months, and you're still going to have to live with your parents. You're going to leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table, and you're still going to be in the apartment paying rent, which, by the way, is not even factored into this math either. You're going to leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table and still kind of have to deal with being in the house that's a little too small for you and your growing family. I think it's okay for you as a salesperson who genuinely cares about the motivation of that buyer to have this discussion with them. In fact, I think you have a moral imperative as a real estate economist to share this information with them. Let me give you one more thought on this, then we'll move on. I would always, always, always rather go through something like this, thoroughly explain it to my buyers and sellers and database, and have them say, all right, I get it, but we're still not going to buy. I would rather a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, them come to me and say, I really should have listened to you back in 2024 when we were talking about this. I really should have listened to you in Q1 of 2025 when we were talking about this. I would far rather them say that than I would 2 years from now, that person come to me and say, why didn't you tell me? Or I wish you would have told me. Or if I had only known that's what was going to happen, then I would have bought. So if you feel like I'm preaching at you a little bit, I am. But that's also part of the reason that we're here is to take something that we know about the market because we've been living in this zone for about 18 to 24 months, but to explain it in what I believe to be a very irrefutable way that is meant to cause a motivated buyer to get unstuck. This is not about, let me be clear, this is not about manipulating buyers into doing something that's not right for them. This is about just saying, hey, before you really say no and sit on the sidelines for another year, let me make sure you know exactly what you're saying no to. If you take nothing else away from today, it would be this slide.